In today's video, we'll be not just comparing the specs but also the ownership cost too. So hello guys and welcome to another uncanny spec comparison of an electric versus an ICE motorcycle. Before we begin, subscribe to MotorBeam and let's get started. Since you guys have read the title, yes, we are including the Pulsar 125 in this spec comparison, as I feel after reviewing all the bikes, performance of the RV400 is similar to a 125 rather than a 200, okay? Let's start with the looks, and since everybody says looks are subjective, my opinion is that Pulsars are just too old right now. Both the motorcycles that we have right now have a Street Fighter design, while the Pulsar 125 carries the second gen design which is quite old. The NS200 hasn't got a facelift even now and looks very dated. The Revolt RV 400 looks very fresh and has two attractive color options, while the extra amount of body panels don't give it any beefy look like the Pulsars do. Talking about dimensions, Revolt has not shared those specific details with us about the RV 400 or the other models too. But since we have an idea, it is clear that the Pulsar 125 is the longest motorcycle here, while the NS200 is the tallest and the widest too. The Revolt RV400 is the smallest here and it does not really require any much space as it mainly carries just a battery and an electric motor. As all the three motorcycles have similar ergonomics, the seat height of the Revolt is the tallest, while the Pulsar 125 is best suitable for short riders as it is the shortest. The seat cushioning of the 125 is the most comfortable, while the RV400 and the NS200 are similar in terms of comfort. NS200 gets a split seat setup, RV400 gets a single piece seat, while the Pulsar 125 gets two variants which are offered in both split seat as well as a single piece seat setup. Revolt has switchable foot pegs which can alter the ergonomic triangle a little bit. While the Pulsar 125 has a comfortable posture, the NS200 is very upright with center set foot pegs. You get standard handlebars on both the RV400 and the Pulsar 125, while the NS200 gets only clip-ons. If we talk about the instrument cluster, there is actually nothing much to talk about for the Pulsars because both the bikes that we have right now use an analog digital cluster which is quite old and they just display the necessary information. The Revolt RV400 on the other hand is an AI enabled motorcycle with a fully digital cluster. The smart meter connects to an app where there are features like a geolocation, geofencing, navigation, ride data collection and also an onboard assistance too. Information placement on the digital display can be altered or changed with the help of an app for the RV400. Adding some more to the feature list, the RV400 gets a keyless go feature. So you can just have a key in your pocket and you can just go, or you can just activate the motorcycle with an app itself. While you will definitely require a key for the Pulsars. There is only an LED tail light for the Pulsars, while the lights on the RV400 are all LEDs. The LED projector headlight on the RV400 is quite tiny, but it actually looks modern rather than that of the other Pulsars. Now let's jump to the performance aspect as we are comparing an electric motorcycle against a fuel powered or a petrol powered motorcycle. The electric motor on the RV400 delivers about 54 Nm of torque right from the word get-go, while the Pulsar NS200 only has an 18.5 Nm of torque, that too around 8000 rpm. But the NS is a lot more quicker, a lot faster too, as it is way more powerful at 24.1 bhp against just 9 bhp on the RV400. Since we are considering the numbers, the RV400 gets a 3 kW electric motor while the Pulsar 125 gets a 125cc air-cooled FI BS6 motor, while the NS200 gets a 199.5cc liquid-cooled FI BS6 motor. As I already mentioned, the power output of the RV400 is close to 9 bhp, but it is pretty close to the one on the Pulsar 125 which is at 11.6 bhp. 54 Nm. Yes, it might sound massive, but the RV400 uses a belt drive which has the maximum possible power loss. And it has a comparatively huge sprocket too at the rear, ensuring a better throttle response. But it is still very sharp in the sport mode and it mellows down as soon as we get into eco or ride mode. The overall performance of the RV400 is not at all close to the NS200, but it is better than the Pulsar 125. However, the top speed is limited to 85 km/h for the RV. The Pulsar 125 can reach up to 105 without stressing out too much, and as we know, the NS200 can cross the 130 mark by going all out in the top end. I know some people will even say that they have done more than 130, so do let me know in the comments below what was your top speed. But do understand this point, it is not safe until and unless you do it in a controlled environment. But is it owning an electric motorcycle practical enough? Well, you can do about 300 kilometers in a full tank on the NS and you could do about 400 to 450 kilometers on a full tank in the Pulsar 125. while the riding range of the RV400 is maximum up to 150 kilometers, and that too in the eco mode. If you get into the ride mode, you drop down to 100 kilometers, and if you get into sport mode, it is even lower at 85 kilometers. Even the top speed is restricted to 60 and below in the power saving mode of the RV400. It also takes about 5 hours to charge from 0 to 100, while it would take about just 5 minutes to do a full tank in the Pulsars, right? Or any other petrol motorcycle. So where does it benefit? It is the running cost, which is less than 50 paise per kilometer for the RV400, while it is almost 1.5 rupees for the 125, and it is almost close to 2.5 rupees for the NS200. The RV400 gets a 3.24 kWh battery, which is right where the normal tank would be. It is removable and can be charged separately, but it does not get any kind of fast charger option. The Pulsar NS200 gets a 12-liter fuel tank, while the Pulsar 125, even after being an exact replica or lookalike of the Pulsar 150, it has a smaller fuel tank of 11.5 liters. The RV400 is the smoothest vehicle here, and it does not really have any vibrations. While the Pulsar 125 comes second, the NS200 is quite harsh and heats up the most too. The exhaust note of the Pulsars is typical, while the RV400 has a trick under its sleeve. There are 4 fake exhaust notes with built-in speakers, which makes the RV400 stand out. The RV400 does not have any gearbox as it is electric, but it has 3 riding modes. The Pulsar, on the other hand, for a 125 gets a 5-speed unit, while the NS gets a 6-speed gearbox. To make things clear, Revolt only has 2 models left in the RV lineup, the RV400 and the RV300. Earlier there was 2 options for the RV400, the standard and the premium. It has been taken off. There is just one model, that is the RV400 premium, and that is what we are talking about. While the Pulsar 125 also has 2 variants, with disc and without disc, while the NS200 does not have any variants at all. The NS200 is also the heaviest here at 156 kgs. The Pulsar 125 is in the middle at 140 kgs, while the Revolt RV400 is the lightest here at just 108 kgs, as it does not carry any major mechanical parts. Even after the weight difference, the performance department is definitely dominated by the Pulsar NS200, while the RV400 takes over the Pulsar 125 thanks to the immediate electric punch. Talking about riding dynamics, the NS200 nails it too with the best chassis on offer, a perimeter frame. While both the Pulsar 125 and RV400 get a cradle frame, the 125 gets a double cradle unit. The RV400 uses a lightweight steel cradle frame, which is slightly cheaper to make too. The suspension setup on the RV400 can be called the most premium, as it uses USG forks at the front, but the thickness of those forks aren't very much, as it is just as thick as a telescopic suspension on the Pulsar 125. The Pulsar NS200 also uses telescopic forks, but they are way thicker to carry the weight and performance too. While the Pulsar 125 uses traditional shocks at the rear, the NS200 and the RV400 get a monoshock setup. So the overall suspension setup on the Pulsar 125 is tuned for comfort, while others is focused for dynamics. The setup is hard on both the NS200 and the RV400, while they are corner cravers too. The handling and feedback is brilliant on both the motorcycles, but the Pulsar gives more confidence due to its weight. The RV400 does hold its line well, but it is just too light to provide the necessary agility. The thicker tires on the RV400 do give it necessary grip, while the Pulsar 125 has got the thinnest set here. The NS200 has got the thickest rubber. While all the tires are coming from MRF, they provide similar levels of grip. If we talk about the stopping distance, the RV400 has the most advantage here, as it uses disc brakes at the front as well as the rear, while it is the lightest, requiring the least amount of braking force. Both the Pulsar 125 and RV400 have a CBS system, while the Pulsar 125 uses a drum brake at the rear. There is also an optional lower variant where the 125 gets only drum brakes. The braking setup on the NS200 is likable and now comes standard with single channel ABS too, but the feedback isn't as strong as you would expect from a bike which delivers such great performance. Coming to the cost of ownership and purchase, before you guys say anything, I have collected all the data from actual owners of the respective motorcycles. They were good enough for the NS200, a few for the 125, and very few, but they are still there for the Revolt RV400. So the cost of purchase is the least for the Pulsar 125, as it comes on road for 91,000 for the disc variant, while both the RV400 and NS200 come at a cost of 1.5 to 1.55 lakhs respectively. So the purchase cost of both the motorcycles is almost the same. If we consider the cost of ownership over a 3-year time period, This was only possible accurately for the NS200, while the cost will be approx for the Pulsar 125 and the RV400, considering the service cost shared with us. And these motorcycles are fairly new because they are just a year old. The first year service is free for the NS200 and it adds only the consumables, which is up to say 5000 rupees maximum. Same is the case for the Pulsar 125 and the service is free while the consumables add up to 2500 maximum. This for the RV400 is nil as there is no extra consumables needed for the first year of service. Second year onwards, considering the most ideal conditions of no crashes or accidents and a decent mileage on the meter, the cost of consumable increases and the service charge starts to come in. About 10,000 for the NS200, but it goes up to rupees 6,000 maximum for the Pulsar 125. Even now the RV400 is free of charge as the maintenance cost for the first 3 years is included in the cost of the motorcycle itself. Not just that, even the cost of one set of tire replacement comes under the cost of vehicle. Only charges that are needed to be paid for are damages or replacement for the brake pads, which is at every 10,000 kilometer interval. So in the span of 3 years, the complete ownership cost, including the purchase cost of the RV400, reaches up to 1.55 lakhs, while that for the Pulsar 125 reaches up to 1 lakh and the NS200 goes up to 1.7 lakhs maximum. As per the rule of insurance, we consider the on-road cost to include the 5-year insurance plan. As the fuel cost goes, it depends completely upon your riding style, but it will definitely add some more for the Pulsars. However, Revolt offers emergency battery replacement for a charged battery, which definitely comes under a cost and it will add up as you use that service. So by now, does it make sense to buy an electric or should we just stick to petrol powered motorcycles? After considering all the specs and cost of ownership too, the Pulsar 125 actually runs cheaper than the RV400. But if you're looking for outright performance, the NS200 makes up for it with a slightly additional cost. But then there is a personal choice. If you want to be a part of an electric revolution and want to make a change from your end from now, the Revolt RV400 turns out to be a decent motorcycle to start with, although at a premium. And yes, you do get those fake superbike sounds with the tech and connectivity features. So the choice to pick your next motorcycle is right up to your need and requirement. This was just an elaborate spec comparison with the cost of ownership too. If you guys stuck till the end, I would like to say thank you from my heart and I hope you do hit the like button. Also let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.